What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook, late in the day on Friday, late in the week, heading into the weekend. Thought I'd jump on here and see what's on your minds in lieu of any drama surrounding the Green Bay Packers the way there was yesterday, although Aaron Rodgers' comments about his quarterback coach, the handling of, still making plenty of headlines throughout the day today. Adam, hello. Brendan, thanks for joining us. Steve, not quite first. You had two people ahead of you, but nice try. Joe, thanks for joining us. As always, a bunch of people hopping on here. Always good to see everyone. Hope everyone's had a good week, ready for the weekend, ready for the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a great game against two teams. And I thought Aaron Rodgers, funnily enough, made an astute point when he appeared with Rich Eisen yesterday when he said, everybody talks about, you're giving Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady 2 weeks to prepare. Well, the guys on the other side of the ball have shown that they've done a pretty darn good job throughout the year preparing for opponents. Namely, you look at the job Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz have done. Peterson especially, the job he did attacking Minnesota's first-ranked defense with a backup quarterback. I'm telling you, this is going to be a great game. The matchups are exemplary, and I love the fact that the Patriots are going up against a team in the Eagles that really has kind of what it takes as far as, the two Super Bowls that the Patriots have lost in the Belichick and Brady era have come at the hands of the Giants, who in both of those games were able to get to Brady with only 4 linemen, basically. Now, they obviously moved pressure around, they used different tactics, but for the most part, they were able to disrupt a lot of what the Patriots were trying to do using just the 4 down guys. And Philadelphia is very much capable of following not so much that blueprint, but that modus operandi. So I think it's going to be a great game, a close game, and I really can't wait for it. Connor starts us off with, Stephen A. Smith said Rodgers should demand a trade. Well, Stephen A. Smith has to fill airtime, so and he wants you to watch, and he wants you to click on his headlines. So that's why he says things like that. And maybe, maybe he really believes it, and that's fine. And hell, maybe even Aaron Rodgers is thinking about it right now, for all we know. But it's not going to come to that. The Packers are about to make him the highest paid player in the NFL sometime this offseason. More than anything, I think this is about Rodgers kind of positioning himself and letting the Packers know how valuable he is and basically angling for a monster contract, which is what he's going to get. I think by the time they report in April for the offseason program, a lot of this is going to be a bump in the PR road, basically. What did Coward say about you? I don't think Colin Coward said anything about me in particular. He did read one of my tweets from yesterday when I mentioned the unfortunate dynamic between Rodgers and McCarthy throughout the years, where McCarthy never ever speaks ill of Aaron in public, while Rodgers never misses a chance to take a passive-aggressive shot at his coach. Someone sent me the clip. I didn't see it, so maybe he said something else along the way there in the program, but as far as I know, he just read my tweet on the air. I think Jerry Kramer finally gets into the Hall of Fame thoughts, ? My thoughts are, if he doesn't just burn the place to the ground. Now, obviously, I don't want anyone to go, don't go, this is this drama here. I'm just kidding in that regard. Don't go burn Canton to the ground. But anyone who's followed me for any number of years knows how I feel about the Hall of Fame. The Kramer omission has rendered it pretty much a joke for a number of years, and the fact that Leroy Butler hasn't even been able to sniff a finalist spot when it comes to the voting pretty much reinforces that. Until both of those omissions are taken care of, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. It's a popularity contest voted on by a bunch of writers, most of whom have never even really broken down the games of the people they're voting on. So, lots of, he dominated this, numbers thrown around, what he was like in the locker room, what he was like to deal with. None of that means nothing. So, for the most part, I think throughout the years they've done a good job of getting it right. But there's so many omissions, there's so much politics, a bit of a lack of transparency that I can't take it seriously. Is Doherty a voter? Yes, he is. He took over the Green Bay chapter when Cliff Crystal went to work for the Packers. Pete Doherty is now the local Green Bay representative. Is Bryce ready to step up? No, that's a really good question. Hard to say, especially considering he did not look like he was taking a big leap from year 1 to year 2 prior to his injury. Really inconsistent player. You saw some really good things his first year in 2016, but saw a lot of bad angles and bad kind of head ducking / attempts at tackling early on in the season. I really expected him to look a lot better coming out of the gate. Now, that is not to say that it's not salvageable, that he couldn't bounce back. We've seen guys do it throughout the years, but I don't know, we'll see. That's definitely something they're going to have to monitor, and they're going to have to weigh, when they're considering upgrading at that position, because there's no doubt that what looked like a position of strength heading into last season turned out to be anything but at the safety spot. How is Aaron and Mike McCarthy's relationship really? I think it's, always going to be one where they respect each other. It's always going to be a little contentious. They're both kind of, alpha males who will butt heads. They go about it differently. McCarthy's very much, what you see is what you get kind of guy. Rodgers very much is a little more calculating. But they both want to win. They're both extremely competitive, and I think at the underlying most of their relationship is a great deal of respect. We've heard Rodgers talk throughout the years, whether it was when he was accepting his MVP and he got choked up because it was shortly after Mike McCarthy's brother had passed and he saw McCarthy in the crowd, things of that nature. You've seen throughout the years how close they are, but like any relationship, whether it's friends or family, man, sometimes you fight. Sometimes you butt heads, and I think that's where they're at. What's up with all this Aaron thinking about leaving Green Bay and him being miffed about Van Pelt? Well, a lot of it's smoke. I don't doubt that he is miffed, that he wasn't consulted, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not his job to worry about who the coaches are, and it's not the Packers' job to consult with him on it. Same thing happened back in the day when he said when Ben McAdoo eventually was promoted from tight ends to quarterbacks coach. People forget prior to that, Aaron Rodgers had very publicly said when Tom Clements was given the promotion and they had to find a new quarterbacks coach, he said, he was on his radio show saying, I very much want to be coached by someone who's played the position. Enter Ben McAdoo, who was their tight ends coach at the time. So, like I said, I think a lot of this is being driven by a news cycle, especially during the Super Bowl, which pumps up every NFL headline, especially when it's about a superstar like Aaron Rodgers. But ultimately, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Well, let's see. Everyone wants to know. Will Rodgers leave in Green Bay? Eventually, yes, but not anytime soon. If we draft a quarterback high, could that be Rodgers' replacement? I don't think they go that route, but I tell you what, it is interesting to think that Aaron Rodgers is the same age Brett Favre was when they selected Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. Adrian Claiborne be a good fit for the line? I think he would. I'd be interested to see, A, if he actually hits the market, and B, what the market will be around him. I do think he'll have a number of suitors if he does hit free agency. But that is definitely a guy that could help. I don't think that's the direction the Packers would go. Not so much because of fit. I think he could help. But I do think they'll want to spend free agency money elsewhere, probably at either corner or tight end. But it's a possibility. Do the Packers need to target a punt return, kick return specialist? I don't know about a specialist, Noah, but they do need to look at returnability as something they need to value a little bit more, I think, especially in the draft. They've had a chance a couple of times in the last few years where there was a returner kind of sitting there in the third or fourth rounds, a guy who plays a position, either running back or wide receiver, who had great returnability, and they've passed on him, and they've kind of tried to make guys into returners. Latest, obviously, being Trevor Davis. But, I definitely think they need to kind of prioritize it a little bit more. And who knows, with Gutekunst now at the helm, maybe they will. We need to focus on the offensive line. Dan, I don't know. I think they need to focus at right tackle. Other than that, they're pretty set. I mean, they've got Bakhtiari, Taylor and Lindsley. That locks up the left side of the line in the center. The right guard, probably going to be McRae, although they could bring back Evans. Man, Alexa's freaking out at me over here. Alexa, go to sleep. So, and then, at right tackle, that's the real question. Is Brian Bulaga, and he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. Will most likely start on the PUP. And I didn't see anybody who's ready to start 6 games, maybe even more, to start the season. Spriggs isn't up to the task. Murphy's not up to the task. Patrick isn't up to the task. So that's their one spot. They're going to have to look. Do we have a fullback anymore? Yes, Adam. You have 2. You have Aaron Ripkowski and Joe Carriage. Jimmy Graham is a possibility. I tend to think looking at somebody like Austin Safarian Jenkins makes a lot more sense. But they're going to have to address that position. They're going to have to look at free agency and the draft, undoubtedly. Can Gutekunst go back in time and re-sign Cook? We'll see what he can do. Maybe he's a wizard. We don't know. Do we target Talib, Fuller, or Malcolm Butler? Of those 3, I think Fuller's probably the most likely. He'll probably be the most reasonably priced, even though he still may get a really good deal. But I think Butler is going to get big time money, and I don't know if Gutekunst is ready to be that aggressive. As far as Talib, I think Talib makes a lot of sense on the field. Now, we all know, or most of us probably are aware, of his off-field issues, his locker room disruptions, his on-the-field disruptions. But he's a talent, and he would definitely help Pettin's defense. Now, is Gutekunst going to go down that road? I have trouble believing that will be the case. But of those 3 that you listed, I think Fuller makes probably the most sense for them to set their eyes on. Do you think Lane Taylor is the real deal? Hell yes, Joe. 0 question. Guy's going to be a 10-year starter. And you look at the job he did at both left and right tackle last year when he was forced into playing those positions. The guy who I think he played 1 snap of tackle in college. I mean, that was unreal. I mean, obviously some of that credit has to go to Joe Campen, but Taylor's the one who was on the field doing it. And man, that tape is really good. Shockingly good. Yeah, they got a steal. And I know they extended him just before, at the start of last season. They got an absolute steal in my opinion. Wally with the question of the day. Do you think the refs messed up the groundhog call today, or did the booth get it right? That's a good question. I don't know. It depends on which groundhog you're going with. We have a local groundhog here in New York City. I know Puxatawny Phil is the nationally kind of regarded groundhog. I stick with the Bill Murray movie myself. That's just what I go with. What could a Matthews trade yield? I don't think a whole heck of a lot at this point, mostly because of his contract. Most people are not going to trade for a guy who's going into the last year of his deal and is set to make close to $14 million. Maybe they could renegotiate the deal into an extension prior to the trade, but that's an awful lot of work to go get a guy at the end of his career. I don't see that happening. I tend to think the Packers will be the one who restructure and or extend his deal, knock down his cap number, and make sure that he's a Packer for a few more years. Whatever happened with the DRC Eli Apple stuff? Well, I'm sure Eli Apple will be a free agent. I'd be surprised if the Packers went that route. I thought they should have traded for DRC last year when he became available, but I don't think that's going to happen. Do players retire to get away from a team? Well, Brett Favre did. So, what about our stinky defense? Major changes need to happen. See, that's the thing. They fired the defensive coordinator. You can't get much more major than that. Outside of that, there are plenty of good pieces there. They just need to coalesce. They need to play better, and they need a corner. There's no doubt about that. And they need a pass rusher. And I think a pass rusher probably first before a corner. But they're not as far away as your comment makes them sound. Yes, they are porous often. But 1 or 2 pieces and a competent defensive scheme, they'll be turned around real quick. Sam Shields return likely. Douglas, make sure you read Michael Cohen's piece up at PackersNews.com. He talked with Sam a day ago. Sam is definitely wanting to get back into the league. Obviously, the Packers released him. I would be absolutely shocked if the Packers took a chance on him. I'd actually be pretty surprised if any team signs him. But, I mean, you know, good on him for wanting to get back out there. He's an exceptional talent. He's got a long road back, and we'll see if a team wants to take that chance. I doubt it'll be the Packers. The number one question, any chance Rodgers leaves? No. Not anytime soon. Let's see. You see Ketchman is getting political in his new blog? Oh, man. Connor, I don't go anywhere near politics. Religion and politics, I'm out on them. Let's see. Is this thing on? Craig, I believe it is on. A lot of comments about Jordy, but he was leading the league in touchdowns before Aaron went down. I've talked about it here before. Jordy Nelson has value to the offense when Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. There's plenty of tape that you can look at that shows him still has great ability to find holes in the zone, knows when to sit down, has a great rapport with Rodgers, especially at the line of scrimmage when they're adjusting things to what the coverages are pre and post snap. Obviously, he looked worn down there at the end. A lot of his explosion after the catch is gone, but he's still a valuable piece of the offense. Now, I do think they will try to restructure and or renegotiate his contract, but I don't expect him to be cut. Who's the leader of this defense? Oh, Mike Daniels. I don't think there's any question of that. I think HaHa Clinton Dix is set to ascend. The problem is his play needs to step up for him to do so. Yeah, I think Martinez is probably playing his way into a leadership role. I think there are some leaders, emerging leaders there, but obviously they need one or two more pieces. Do you think Aaron Rodgers will leave? Jason, you're hilarious. Adams concussions, Chris, yeah, he's had a few. He doesn't seem to be concerned about them. Two of them were obviously on wicked, awful hits, and you know that first one from this past season, he came back and played in that next game. Of course, it was 10 days later, but he's not concerned about it. And obviously, every brain is different. Every reaction to those concussions is different. He does seem to have a penchant for bouncing back, at least so far from the 3 he's had. But you never know. Maybe those catch up with him down the line. So it's really hard to say one way or the other, just because every case is so individualized. And without being privy to any of the medical data, you can really only go by what they say and what they put on the field. Because outside of that, it's just guesswork. What about Callahan? Jennifer, I think he'll probably be back as far as as a camp arm. I'd be very surprised if he makes it to the 53 this year, though, and or the practice squad. I think they'll draft somebody and or sign a free agent for competition's sake, and I think that'll spell the end of Callahan with the Packers. What are we doing with Hundley? Cody, I don't doubt that they'll bring him back and they'll draft somebody and or sign a free agent to compete with him as the backup. But he's on the last year of his rookie deal, which means he's dirt cheap. And now that you've got, 7-8 starts under his belt, he can run the offense. You keep him around as cheap insurance, most likely as your number 3. But we'll see how that shakes out. Do we have a number 3 wide receiver if we were to lose Cobb or Nelson? Obviously the obvious answer is Geronimo Allison would fill in on the outside as a perimeter player. The other intriguing name I think you need to remember is D'Angelo Yancey, who spent his rookie year on the practice squad. I know a lot of people will name check Michael Clark, especially since he got called up there at the end of the year. But Yancey was having a really good camp down the stretch there in the final kind of couple preseason games. He's a prototypical guy, big, strong, can work over the middle, able to work deep, and he's a prototypical size-speed ratio wide receiver that the Packers have favored pretty much since Ron Wolf came along in 1991. So I would expect him to get a really good look, even if those guys stick around. I think Yancey could make some real headway in camp next year. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for your questions. I'm sorry if I didn't get to yours, but make sure you're checking PackersNews.com. We got anything and everything having to do with the Packers. We got it all for you, including Sam Shields' attempted comeback. All the latest is up. make sure you're checking that out. Enjoy the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great game, like I said at the top of the video. Make sure you check my podcast, Nagler's Never Right. You can check either iTunes or PackersNews.com. Until Monday, I'll talk to you guys later.